Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, guys. Are you ready? Okay, guys, let's go. Today we are going to complete the plant reproduction. In front of you, the reproduction in potatoes by tuber, as we explained it before. You can summarize this reproduction by tuber like this. The first, the formation of the tuber, swollen part of the stem, and leaves perform photosynthesis process. So it forms the production of the glucose or sucrose, and the formation of protein and lipids, and then the flowing transport this food to the stem, and the tuber take this one, and then the tuber start to separate it from the stem to produce new potato. Other type of reproduction, which is reproduction by spores. All of these types of reproduction by tuber by spores considered as sexual or asexual reproduction.
Asexual. Asexual.
Asexual. Right. So what happened or what are the reproduction by formation of spores? Like the plant, like mushroom, its structure, this branch is called hyphae or hypha. Hypha, not hypha, okay? Hyphae. This plant or fungi have six, includes spores. This six called spore sac or sporangium. Sporangium, the six which contains spores. When the number of spores increase inside this sporangium, it starts to explode and releasing the spores into air. When these spores fall in suitable media, they will become active and start to grow to form new hyphae, and this new hyphae will produce new fungus again. So the examples about asexual reproduction, this part about the tuber in the potatoes and the reproduction by formation of spores in fungi. And then we explain sexual reproduction, and we said that sexual reproduction required sexual organs, whatever the type of living organism, and this sexual reproduction occurs by meiosis division. Who can tell me why this type of reproduction occurs by meiosis division? Why? Why this type of reproduction involved meiosis division, not mitosis. Who can say this? No one? Marine.
Yes, sir.
What is the difference between meiosis and the mitosis divisions?
Mitosis is to get divided into two.
Both of them, the cell divided into two.
أيوة الميوسيس for the reproductive cells
Yes. And
and
the mitosis for
for the body cells.
excellent. And sexual reproduction includes sexual cells or body cells. The
Sexual
occurrence, yes, the occurrence of sexual reproduction needs or involves sexual organs or sexual cells. So this type of reproduction, sexual, occurs by meiosis or mitosis.
Meiosis.
Excellent, thank you. So this type of sexual reproduction involved meiosis division for the formation of gametes. And we stated before, gametes mean the sex cell of male and sex cell of female, which is sperm in male, ovum in female in case of animal, pollen grains in male, egg or ovum in females in case of plant. So what the meaning of gametes? They are cells that contains half number of chromosomes as the parent cells contains. For example, in human being, the gametes will contain 23 pairs. 23 without pairs. 23 without pairs. But body cells, 23 pairs. This diagram explains the meiosis division. As you can see, this one for the male body cells and this for female body cells, and the cells which have the total number of chromosomes is called diploid. So diploid means the cell contains total number of chromosomes or original number of chromosomes. But the cell which have the half number of chromosomes is called haploid. So we have two words, diploid, haploid. What is the difference between diploid and haploid? Diploid means the cell contains a total number of chromosomes, while haploid means the cell contains the half number of chromosomes. So which type of cells diploid and which type of cells haploid? Who can say it? Muhammad Hussein. Muhammad Hussein. Okay, Muhammad Mahmoud. Muhammad Mahmoud.
I can hear you.
Okay, which type of cells is which type of cells? Haploid and which type of cells? Diploid.
The diploid is containing the total number of chromosomes, but the haploid is contains only the half number of chromosomes.
Which type? Which type of cells? Which type? I don't ask about the
Haploid is the
explanation.
6 cells, and diploid is the is the body cells.
Again, Muhammad, please.
The diploid is the body cells, and
Yes,
the haploid is the 6 cells.
yes, it's right. So diploid cells is for our father cells, diploid, 6 cell haploid. And after the fertilization, which means the fusion between male 6 cell and female 6 cell, zygote is formed. And this one, zygote composed of 1 cell. And we said it before, zygote will contain the total number of chromosomes. So zygote is diploid cells, because it contains the total number of chromosomes or the full number of chromosomes present in the parent cells. But this zygote, which is produced from sexual reproduction, is not identical to the parent cell. But zygote, in case of asexual reproduction, is identical to the parent cell. So this table for the comparison between mitosis and meiosis rapidly. Mitosis occurs in all body cells except 6 cells. Meiosis occurs just in reproductive organs or 6 to 4 gametes. Number of cells produced from this one. Mitosis gives 2, identical to each other. So no variations in this division. But meiosis, 2 firstly produce 2, and finally the 2 produce 4, because please pay attention in this point. Meiosis occurs through 2 stages, not one, like mitosis. Mitosis, just 1 stage, but meiosis 2 stages. Meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, each stage produce 2 cells. So finally, this type of division, meiosis produce 4. Clear? It's clear, guys? Again, meiosis includes or occurs through 2 stages. Each stage produces 2 cells, and at the end of these 2 stages, number of producing cells will be 4. Next point, number of chromosomes. The number of chromosomes in mitosis, total number or diploid. But the number of chromosomes in case of meiosis have number or haploid. The importance of both of them. Mitosis, as we explained it before, for repairing, for growth, for replacement of cells, and some living organisms used mitosis as asexual reproduction, like fungi in case of spore formation, potatoes in case of reproduction by tuber, and bacteria in case of binary fission. But the importance of meiosis just for the formation of gametes to have number of chromosomes. So meiosis gives diversity or variations, which means the new cells different or not identical to the original cell or the parent cell. The sexual reproduction in plant requires the presence of flower. Flower is the sexual organs in the flowering plant. The flower may be unisexual, may be bisexual. What's the difference between unisexual and bisexual or hermaphrodite? Unisexual means the plant just have one kind of sexual organs, male organ or female organs. But bisexual includes both of the sexual organs, male or female. This structure, the identical structure of flower. The four main parts or four walls of the flower, the sepals, then petals, and stamen, which means or which considered as male organ, and carpel, which considered as female organ. The structure of stamen, this one called filament, and the swollen part called anther. And this anther producing the pollen grains. The anther producing pollen grains. And the structure of the female organ, carpel, three parts, stigma, and then style, and like bulb shape called ovary. Inside this ovary, the sepal, and there is point inside the ovary in front of or lead to the passing or entering to the ovule called micropyle, which means this micropyle, from this point the pollen grains enter into the ovule or egg. Okay. In this table, explain each part of flower in details. Firstly, the sepals. Sepals is flower leaf, usually green, and the function of sepals to protect the other parts of the flower. Next, leaf. Petals. Petals are large and colored leaves. What is the importance of petals? The first important for the protection of the sexual organs or reproductive organs. So sepals protect the other parts, which means stamen, carpel, and petals. But petals protect the reproductive organs, which is stamen and carpel. And petals play an important role for sexual reproduction for the flowering plants by insects, especially because when if the plant will pollinated by insects, pollinated means the insects will transfer the pollen grains from flower to the same flower or the flower to another flower, which means the insect will transport the pollen grains to the stigma of the female organs. To form this pollination by insects, the petals of this flower must be scent, which means have odors, and colorful to attract the insects toward it to carry the pollen grains to the other for the same flower. So petals is very important for sexual reproduction for the flowering plant, and have nectar inside its ovary or oval. Next part, stamen, the male organ. Two parts, filament and anther. Anther, the part which contains the pollen grains, or the male gametes. The filaments just hold the anther to deliver the pollen grains for the pollination. Next, the female part, carpel. It includes three main parts: stigma, style, and ovum. Stigma is the part in which the pollen grains sit on its surface to forming pollen tube, as you can see this one, to reach to the ovum inside the ovary. So stigma surface which receives the pollen grain, and after receiving the pollen grains, the stigma will secrete and produce sugary solution or nutritive materials which help the pollen grains to germinate the pollen tube. The style just holding the stigma and considered as the passage of the pollen tube from the stigma to the ovary swollen part or pulp part, which contains or produce ovules or eggs. Ovules, the female gametes or sex cell which contains a half number of growths. Micropyle, it is a small opening here, small opening in ovule. In this opening, the pollen grains entering to the nucleus, to be accurate, the nucleus of the pollen grains, which passes through the pollen tube, or entering to the ovule or egg through this micropyle to fuse the female nucleus. Last point, the nectar glands. This nectar glands present in the base of ovary, and this secretes nectar which sucked by the insects, and this is important to attract insects towards this flower. So for the pollination by flower, there must be colorful petals with scent and nectar glands. Next point about the step of sexual reproduction in plants. This sexual reproduction in flowering plants includes 4 steps. Firstly, the pollination. And we can say that after, before the pollination, formation, I will write it, formation of gametes, firstly before this pollination. After the formation of gametes, start the pollination process. What is the meaning of pollination? Pollination means transfer of pollen grains from the male organ or anther to the female organ stigma. After the pollination, the fertilization and formation of seeds, and then the seed will be dispersed, and then the seed will be germinated. So the steps of sexual reproduction in flowering plant: after formation of gametes, pollination, fertilization and seed formation. Third step, seed dispersal. The last step, seed germination. And we said it, pollination means transfer of the pollen grains from male part, which is anther, to the female part, which is stigma. We said it, we have 2 types of flower, maybe bisexual, maybe unisexual. According to the different types of flower, bisexual and unisexual, we have 2 different types of pollination. Maybe the pollination occurs in the same flower. I mean same flower, not same type of plant. For all types of pollination, it must occur through same kind of plant. I mean the transferring of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of plant required transferring to the same kind of plant, same species. But if the transferring of these pollen grains occurs in the same flower, which have the two reproductive organs, like this, as you can see, this flower have the two reproductive organs. I will circle the male organ by green color, so answer and filament, and I will color the ovary by blue color, this one. So this flower have the two reproductive organs. So the answer will transfer, or the pollen grains will transfer from this answer to the ovary of the same flower. So when the pollination occurs in the same flower of same species, this type of pollination called self-pollination. But if the pollen grains transfer from flower to another flower of the same species, it is considered cross-pollination. So we have two types of pollination: self-pollination, cross-pollination. The self-pollination occurs in bisexual flowers, which means have the two reproductive organs, and these conditions must be occurs for self-pollination. The two reproductive organs must be mature in the same time. That must be mature in the same time. About the cross-pollination, it occurs in both unisexual or bisexual. In this kind of pollination, the pollen grains transfer from the anther to the flower, to the stigma of another flower, or same flower but same species. To another flower of the same species. As we said, the reproductive organs, stamens, and carpels must be mature at the same time. And in case of cross-pollination, maybe they mature in different types. And the self-pollination less variations than cross-pollination. So the methods of pollination. After finishing types of pollination, we have methods of pollination. This pollination must maybe occurs through insects, through water, through animals like human, through air. So the pollen grains may be transported by air, water, insect, animal, human, and so on. So we will just talk about two types of pollination: wind and insect. There is some conditions must be involved in the flowering plant or the flower to transported by wind or transported by insect. Let's start with the wind pollination. For the wind pollination, the petals must be small petals, but for insects must be large and brighter and have nectar and scent odor to attract the insect. Okay. So for the wind pollination, the petals small and dull in color and no guidelines. but in case of insect, must be large in size, more brighter color, and have guidelines to attract the insects. About the nectar, no nectar required for wind pollination, but it must be present in case of insect pollination to attract the insects. For the reproductive organs, about stigma. The stigma must be stigma about the reproductive organ of female. Must be feathery and large to can trapping the pollen grains from air, and the pollen grains must be light in weight, must be dry and small in size to carry by the air and captured by the stigma. And the petals for the reproductive organ, stigma and stamen must be outside petals, hanging outside the petals to carry the pollen grains by air. In case of insects, the reproductive organs, both of them inside petals, not outside, as in case of wind pollination, inside, not outside. And the stigma must be sticky with a smaller surface area. And about the pollen grains, they must be large in size and sticky and have spikes to attract to the insect spot. Next point. About the odor. Wind pollination not required scent or odor for the petals, but in case of an insect, it must be scent petals to attract the insect hormones. The next point about fertilization. After the pollination, the seed, or sorry, the pollen grains reach to the stigma of the flower plant or the reproductive female organ. As you can see, firstly, pollen grains reach to the stigma. Here, this is the pollen grains, and this is the stigma. Stigma produce sugary substance, nutrition for the pollen grains to forming or to help the pollen grains to form pollen tube. And then the pollen grains forming the pollen tubes, as you can see, to pass the nucleus of the pollen male organ. And this pathing of the pollen tube will be through the style of the female organ. And then the nucleus of male travel from the pollen grains to the ovary through the pollen tubes to entering through micropyle inside the ovule of the female organ or female sex cell. And then the fusion occurs between the nucleus of the pollen grains and the nucleus of egg or ovule. And then after the fusion between both of two nuclei, male and female, the zygote will form. After fertilization, so now the zygote is forming the two nucleus fuse together. Okay. Any question? Guys, you don't have any question?
Is this sheet on the LMS?
Yes. Who else, guys? Any question? We will stop in this part. Fertilization of and formation of zygote.
Sir, I entered like at the last 5 minutes because I didn't know that biology one started first.
Okay, no problem, sir.
So like most of the stuff that you explained, I didn't hear it.
Okay. Any question about the explanation?
No.
Okay, you have session now or it's free?
No, we have.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.